Coming into the webinar. I'm going to give it just a minute or two as folks start coming in. We're going to start opening up the webinar here so we can get started promptly at noon. Welcome to everyone that's joining us. Welcome everyone. I think we're going to get started here in a little while. I'm going to start introducing myself and I'll welcome you all to our webinar. So my name is Ashley Brazel. I'm the new Associate Director of New Student and Family Programs here at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I'm filling in for Jonathan, so if you're familiar with chatting with Jonathan, he had to step away for another meeting, so I will be in his spot today. But we're really happy to have you all here for this session for Spring 2025 Move-In. And so we'll get started in a second, but welcome to everyone. I do want to introduce one of our guests here that will be chatting with us. So we'll get started in a second, and I'll introduce you all to Dawn, who is wonderful. So we'll give it another moment as folks start coming in. All right. So I want to start off by introducing Dawn, who is our Director of Operational Services here at UMass, and is going to give a brief presentation on Spring 2025 Move-In. I just want to note that we are not going to have chat right now. We're going to wait till the presentation is finished, and then we will open up the ability for Q&A. So we will use the Q&A session after we're done with the presentation. And again, it's a brief presentation. And I do want to note that this will be recorded, so this will be available to you all after today as a resource. And it is almost noon. All right, we're right here at noon. So again, I'm Ashley Brazel. I'm the new Associate Director of New Student and Family Programs here at UMass. And sitting in for Jonathan, and today we're going to talk about Spring 2025 Move-In with Dawn. So again, Dawn is our Director of Operational Services and is going to have a short presentation on Move-In, and then we will launch into the Q&A. So I will pass it over to Dawn, and we'll get going.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Dawn Bond, Director of Operational Services. My team and I coordinate spring move-in as well as spring move-out, fall move-in, and fall move-out. Today, I'm going to speak briefly on how spring move-in works. I would estimate probably no more than 10 minutes. It's a very brief presentation. Spring move-in is very different than fall move-in. And much easier, quite honestly. So there's less to talk about, and we will open up the floor for Q&A as soon as I'm done presenting. And so thank you for joining us today. We are excited to welcome you back, you and your students back for spring semester. Our spring move-in dates this year are listed here on the screen. We do have an early arrival date, Monday, January 27th, between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. Students who are wishing to move in early are able to request to do so through the online form on our website. There is a $120 early arrival fee for folks moving in early. There are some groups that are already registered with us to move in early. For example, new students to our campus will move in early because their orientation will take place on Tuesday, January 28th. There are 2 regular arrival days this year, both Tuesday, January 28th and Wednesday, January 29th. Students can move in or back in between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. as well. And then a topic that we'll talk about at the very end of this presentation are our late arrival students. So any student that's coming Thursday, January 30th or beyond, we do need you to register as a late arrival so that we don't cancel your assignment as a no-show. We'll switch slides. We're going to talk about the majority of people right now. I checked with our residential life assignment office last week to get this number. 89% of our students that live on campus return to the same room between semesters. And so 89% of students and families will do what I'm going to talk about right now. They will do a check-in through the self-service check-in panel in Spire. And so we do not use a move-in reservation for spring move-in. So if that's something that you're familiar with because you just did it, or if you've done it several times for fall move-in, we do not use move-in reservation for spring, but we do have students complete what is called self-service check-in on Spire to confirm that they are moving back and to record the key mark on the back of their room key that they do indeed have their room key in possession and are able to return and move in easily. So starting at 8 a.m. this Sunday, January 19th, students can begin to log into Spire and go to housing, move in, move out, and then self-service check-in. And that's where they'll follow the instructions that are listed here. And so I'm not going to go through the panel. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but your student will navigate the self-service check-in panel, check the information on the back of their metal key to input it into the screen as indicated here, where it's the big arrow is pointing to the room and the key code, and check in that way. That is the only thing that students have to do in advance if they're returning to the same room. Now, there are some things that come up for students who have perhaps misplaced their key or can't find their U card. And so we do have processes in place to take care of students upon their arrival if they have misplaced their room key or forgotten their room key. We have a mailback option. It's a very tight window. It does have to be priority mailed to the university so that they can avoid, your student can avoid being record, having the door record, and there's a fee associated with that. So that's something that if your student arrives without their key or they're in a panic as you're leaving and they can't find their key, just come. We'll get them taken care of. And then if for some reason you're able to locate it or they remember where they put it while they're traveling, then that is something that can be mailed to the campus. If they have misplaced or lost their U card, depending on the time of the day, we can either send your student to the U card office to get a new U card, or we can issue what we call a temporary card for your student so that they are able to access their front main door to their residence hall and get in and out of their home. So a very small percentage of our students will move into a new room for spring semester, less than 10%. We are never fully occupied for spring semester. And so about 10% or fewer students will move into a new room. Those are students who are new to us for the spring semester, so newly admitted freshmen and transfer students, as well as students who may have changed their assignment between semesters. And so students who are moving into a new room will not do a self-service spring check-in like I just described. They will arrive to campus and go to their service desk. They do need to sign the key agreement in Spire though before coming to campus, or they can do it on their way to campus. But in order for us to complete the check-in at the service desk, they do need to sign their key agreement. Again, that's in Spire. They'll, upon arrival, go to their residential service desk. Each residence hall is affiliated with the one of 8 residential service desks we have on campus to serve students. And that is where a staff member that works for our team will get your student checked in and issue them their key. You will need a photo ID. Your student will need a photo ID to get checked in, even if it's not their U card. We do do that verification at the desk. And then within 48 hours of checking in, students are asked to complete what we call a room condition form. The room condition form is essentially an inventory form that says that the room as it was moved into was in as perfect condition as it could be, and that it's the student's opportunity to tell us if that is not the case. And if there's anything significant happening, perhaps a piece of furniture is missing. This happens very rarely, or there's something damaged in the room, a big section of paint missing on a wall, we would want to know about that so that we can address that through an online work request, maintenance work request. And so your student would complete the room condition form and then also submit an online service request if there's anything significant that should get addressed at the very beginning of the semester. Little tiny things don't need to be added to the room condition form. We know as a very large on-campus housing program, little things are in place. A little scratch on the desk here and a little nick in the paint there is not something that anyone will get billed for, nor is it something that your student needs to take time to record with us and put on file with us. The room condition form is really meant for bigger issues. So what about the U-Card? So we have a number of students that will need a U-Card upon their arrival. And so working with our U-Card office this week, we were able to determine that any domestic student any student with a domestic address who submitted their U-Card photo by January 6th, they will receive their U-Card in the mail at their permanent address starting this week. They're mailing cards this week. And so your student should be in possession of their U-Card. All other students, including our international students and any other student who didn't receive a U-Card or may have just realized they've lost their U-Card, they will need to come to campus and go directly to the U-Card office upon arrival. And if that's the case for you, you may want to plan your arrival time so that your student can go to the U-Card office. We can certainly issue a temp card to get access to the residence halls, but eating and other things that the U-Card is used for, it will be important for them to prioritize getting to the U-Card office. And the U-Card office will be open Monday through Friday that week, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then we have a very, very small population of students that live in break housing. And so we wanted to speak to three types of break housing students. So we have most of our break housing students will be returning to the same room, and they will also do a spring self-service check-in online. And that's just to tell us that they are indeed still here. They are still in possession of their key, and they will be living in the same room in their break housing hall for the spring semester. If your student is in a break housing hall but is moving into a new room or that is not a break housing space for spring semester, they would have needed to check out on January 10th, and then they would return as a student checking into a new assignment on either the 28th or the 29th, and using the process that I just described for students moving into a new room on the previous slide. And then the very unique unicorn is a student who's returning moving to a new room in a break housing hall. And those students would move starting on the 27th, but would need to have that move completed by the 28th. And if your student is in this category and has any questions, they will receive correspondence from us around the steps to take for that. But please let us know and we can help with that. That's a very small population. What is some general information for all residents and families and parents who are coming back to campus at the end of January is we have to think about weather. And so we are going to ask you to check the local weather and plan for a little bit heavier traffic in the local area on the 28th and the 29th than we've been experiencing the whole rest of this month. In each case, no matter how your student is being checked in or moving in, they will drive directly to their hall to unload. Moving bins will be available in halls that have elevators. A moving bin doesn't really help you during spring move-in to just unload the car and then push it to stairs. So any building that does not have an elevator, signing out a moving bin isn't that helpful. The bins will be available in residence halls to be signed out during up until 7 p.m. January 27th through the 29th only. After we get outside of this window of early arrival and regular arrival day, the RSDs, residential service desks, also have bins that can be signed out. The first day that we will begin receiving mail and packages for students and sorting mail and letting students know we have a package for them will begin on Monday, January 27th. Again, getting settled into your new home, it's important for new students to complete the room condition form that I just discussed. Please report any maintenance concerns to us, not just the ones that are in your room as a new student moving in, but perhaps there's something that you're noticing in your room that has occurred over break, or was something that you wanted to report before you left for break, but now is sort of like, oh, I should have reported this. My shade doesn't work, and now I'm back, and I would like for my shade to work. That's a non-emergency online request. A non-working shade would be an online request through non-emergency, but there certainly are a number of things that we would want to know in the moment that typically align with fire and facility safety. And so if there is running water, a lock mechanism broke, broken glass, a fire extinguisher, excuse me, a fire alarm that looks disabled, a smoke detector that doesn't seem connected. So a number of things that we would want to know immediately. We are open 24/7, 365 days a year at the 413-545-6401 phone number, and we would send staff to do an assessment and then look to address that more quickly than a non-emergency online request. We do still have lofting and bunking materials in each of our residence halls that students can access. Each residence hall stores those materials in a different location. It just depends on the space that's available for that. A listing of where bunking and lofting materials for each residence hall is listed on our website. And if your student ends up lofting or bunking their bed, or has had that in the fall semester, but now would like to put a bed rail up on the bed for safety purposes, we also have bed rails in inventory. Bed rails are requested through an online room request, and that would be delivered to the room. And most importantly, and it's why it's last before we go to the last slide in this presentation, is that it is very, very important for you and your student to understand that every residence hall is fitted with a sprinkler system. Every student room has sprinkler heads in it. Sprinkler heads are highly sensitive. You should never, ever touch a sprinkler head, hang anything from a sprinkler head, put anything near a sprinkler head that could encourage it to set into motion. Once a sprinkler head is activated, it will flood the room. It will cover all of the belongings, both you and your roommate's belongings in the room, and likely flood all the other rooms on your floor by going under the door and getting all the belongings on the floor wet. And so we did experience, unfortunately, at fall move-in, a sprinkler head that someone had placed an item on, which activated it. And thankfully, we were not fully occupied at that time in that particular residence hall, but we experienced a fairly significant flood before most students moved in this past fall. And so super important to pay attention to sprinkler heads and avoid them at all costs. If you are rearranging the room or your student is rearranging the room, it's always important to look up first so that you can kind of navigate where that sprinkler head is, so that if you're lifting things to move them and loft them, you don't nick that sprinkler head with a piece of furniture or a bed end as you're trying to set up the bed at a higher level. And then that'll take us to our last slide. Oops, second to last slide. Late arrivals, I mentioned this at the very beginning. Anyone returning after the 29th, classes do start on January 30th, Thursday, January 30th, should register with us by emailing the residential services email box to request a late arrival, so that we can code you as such, so that when the assignment office starts to process no-shows, people who have not either checked in through their service desk as a new student or checked in through the self-service online check-in through Spire will be canceled as no-shows. And so it's important to register as a late arrival if you're coming a little bit later. Some frequently asked questions. What if there's a snowstorm on one of the move-in days? We monitor the weather very closely. We are in fact start working with our emergency management folks later next week to monitor the weather. It'll be a little too far out for actual weather. But as we get closer to the move-in days, we do have contingencies, and we would be posting those on our websites, many websites, the university website, the living website, and we would email students to give them more information if we do expect a significant snow event. Where do I learn more about your UCard? We've included the link for the UCard office plus the phone number here in case you have a particular question about UCard that I haven't covered here today. How can I get a parking permit? We've included the information here for parking services. And then, as I've already said, the meal plan, the spring meal plan starts on Monday, January 27th. That is our contact information. And now we are going to move into the Q&A section of this presentation. And so if you do have questions, you certainly can start putting them into the Q&A, and my team will answer them behind the scenes. And we can also take a few questions if there's some themes to see if I can answer some questions out loud. One of the questions that I can see right off the bat, a super easy one. When do new students find out their assignment for spring semester? This Friday, January 17th, 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So can I elaborate on the residential service desk? I certainly can. There are 8 residential service desks. Each one of those service desks serves a group of buildings. And so, for example, up in the Sylvan residential area, Brown, McNamara, and Cashin are the 3 buildings in Sylvan. The residential service desk for Sylvan is in Cashin Hall. And so all residents that live in Sylvan would go to Cashin Residential Service Desk if they were to receive an email from the Cashin Service Desk letting them know that they had a package to pick up, or perhaps they've locked themselves out of their room. They left the room for a moment, went down the hall to visit with friends, roommate didn't realize, locked the door behind them, locked them out. So that's where your student would go to get a backup key. That's where your student would also go if they've outright lost their key. Maybe they know it's gone forever. Once that's the case, they would come to the Cashin Service Desk if they live in Sylvan and ask for their lock to be changed, and we would process a recore on their behalf. We also issue temp cards. And so for time periods when the UCard is not open, or if it's just not really that convenient for a student who's locked out, we do issue temp cards for between 24 and 48 hours, depending on when the student picks it up, or over the weekend while the UCard office is closed. And so we would issue a temp card so students can get in and out of their home and not be locked out of their building. Residential service desks and which ones are affiliated with what hall, all of that information is listed on our website. And I think someone probably from the team could put the link to that listing in the chat for the webinar, and then everyone will have access to it. Yes, families will be able to park in the lots near the residence halls for a couple of hours. They will be soft on enforcement on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Parking Services, our partner, does know that our students and families are moving back. Please do not park in priority parking lots. So red and blue and green parking lots are not where you should park. You should park in the student lots, which are typically purple and yellow lots. If you're not sure about that, jump onto the Parking Services website and you'll be able to see, dependent on where your student lives, where the best place to park is. Definitely do not park in any Res Life staff parking spots or handicap placard parking spots, and leave your car there. Of course, it's sort of common sense. But yes, you will be able to park for short periods of time in what we call student lots, purple and yellow lots. I do not know how much it's cost to replace a UCard, but one of my team might. I can see that question in there right now. See if we get to that. How would you know if you have a new roommate? I can take that one. Students will be able to see who is assigned to their room, suite, or apartment starting this Friday, January 17th on Spire under assignment notification, 12:01 a.m. Currently, there is not a place to find or choose a roommate. Room selection for spring semester has concluded. The assignment office is releasing assignments this Friday. And since it's Wednesday, I'm going to make the assumption that they are done and ready to go for Friday. I believe the first time that students can change their assignment for the spring semester is after no shows have been reported, cancellations have been completed, and spaces have been verified as vacant. And so I believe that would be into the first full week of February. That information is on the Living website around how students can change their assignment for spring semester. Students can sign up for early arrival by using the form on the Living website. We do not have a specific move-in time for any students. We do not use the move-in reservation for spring semester. As indicated at the very beginning of this presentation, that 89% of our students are moving back into the same exact room, took home what they needed for the break period, do not hopefully have a giant carload of things that need to be unloaded, and just have enough that, 1 or 2 trips will get them into their residence hall and get them moved in back in for spring semester. So we use the honor system during spring move-in. Please do not leave your car in the unload zone. Most of our residence halls will not have monitored unload zones during those 3 days, because again, we just make the assumption that after someone's moved their belongings in, they care enough about their neighbors to move the car and then come back and help their students set up or finish setting up their room and getting settled for the spring semester. So it looks like we've answered all of the questions that were in the Q&A. And so I'm going to go back over to Ashley and see if there's anything else we can do today to help people. Did we put in the chat?
Yeah, I don't see any more questions coming into the chat. If anyone has any other ones, how many new students are coming? Spring just came in. Are there any firm don't bring items? That's a good question that just came in.
Yes, that's a great question. There are prohibited items. They are all listed under the residence hall policies on our Living website. I can give you some examples, and they typically relate to the same exact topics that we're concerned about when it comes to emergency maintenance. We restrict things that would impact the safety of our students in the residence hall. And so candles are not allowed, even unlit candles. You may not have a candle, even if you never plan to light it, and even if it's visually clear that it's never been lit, that is a policy violation. And there have been students who have been documented for candles. So candles are 1,000% not allowed in the residence halls. Hot plates are not allowed in the residence halls. Firearms are not allowed in the residence halls. There are a number of devices, including hoverboards, where the charger unit, the battery units have been found to catch on fire that are limited from being in the residence halls. So I think it is helpful to take a look at the prohibited items section of our website so that you are safe in that category. How many new students are coming for spring? I think if I remember correctly, about 300 new students admitted for spring semester that are coming. Ashley, you might be able to help me based on your knowledge of who's coming for orientation.
So I would say it's a little bit under 400 in that 300 to 400 range. Yeah.
Great.
I don't see any more open questions. Except a thank you, which I want to say thank you all for joining us today, and
Nice.
also Dawn's amazing team who's been answering questions, and Dawn also, because I know move-in always comes a lot of questions. So we really appreciate you taking time today to go over the process. So
You are super welcome. Thank you for having us. I would say the most important thing to think about and keep track of with us, and we will be also doing so, is the weather. If we are having a significant weather event, even if it doesn't close the university, we want you to be safe returning to campus. And so we will be working with campus partners and communicating about what to expect and whether you can come or not. If we do have a university closure day on any one of the days that students are planning to arrive, that will change the way we do move in. Our staff are not considered essential personnel. I would not be asking staff to come in that work at the residential service desks in a snowstorm to check people in a snowstorm. So we will communicate expectations and information that will be helpful for students' family and their families if that were to happen. We are way too far out on the extended forecast to know if we're even getting a little snow. And so I wouldn't even be able to tell you if we are getting a lot of snow. We have had a significant weather event at Spring Move-In, and so we are prepared. We have strategies in place, and we will make sure that we communicate robustly about how that will work. And so thank you for coming today. You have our contact information. Residential services at umass.edu is the general email that is monitored Monday through Friday. And so drop us an email and we'd be happy to help if you have a specific question that we didn't answer today.
Thank you so much, Dawn, and thank you so much, everyone. And if you have any other questions regarding students coming back to campus and welcome to the U or ready for the U, I know we had some questions in the chat. You can feel free to contact our new student affiliate programs office.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.